Sometimes when I give a speech, I start out by asking my audience to create a picture in their mind, an image, if you will, of someone with a physical disability. And then I ask them, did that image resemble me at all? And it never does. But that's okay, because for many, many years, I didn't think that I had a physical disability. So let me tell you a story. Most of my life has been pretty interesting and unique. I am biracial, half Honduran, half black, and when I was 7 months old, I was adopted by an all-white Dutch Christian Reformed family and raised in a small, all-white farming community in Minnesota with no other people of color within a 200-mile radius. And so when we would go out and about, strangers would touch my hair and my skin without asking permission. So from an early age, I felt violated and in the spotlight. But in 1979, I was in another, more public spotlight, a national spotlight. It was a hot August evening, shortly after 6 p.m. I was 13 years old, and I was working in my parents' grocery store. And my dad told me to head to the back room, the meat room, to start the end-of-day cleaning. Now, I hated this room. It was scary, full of sharp knives, grinders, saws, and blades that were about as tall as I was at that age. And for some reason that evening, I decided to start with the scariest machine in the room, the meat grinder. And there was a part inside that was a little bit wonky, and you had to coax it out. I'd seen the adults do it several times. No problem. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't quick enough. And within seconds, my fingers were caught up to the front knuckle. And I remember vividly reaching over and turning that machine off. And then the screaming began. I have never felt such excruciating pain in my life. And since then, I've given birth to 2 children without medication. I screamed, and I screamed, until my mother, who was at the front of the store, came running. She only saw her child in immense pain. She only heard the ungodly screams of that child. And so she flipped the switch, thinking she was turning the machine off. And on August 15, 1979, at 6:18 p.m., my life was changed forever. My right arm was ground to within inches of my elbow. And do you know people still have the nerve to ask me why I'm a vegetarian? It's true, I am. Within minutes, the room was filled with fire and rescue workers, and it was as if my senses were heightened. I could hear my mother crying hysterically somewhere in the store, and through an open window to my left, my normally stoic father had a look of such distress on his face I will never forget. And those big, strong fire and rescue workers who were the fathers, uncles, and brothers of my friends, all working frantically to try to get me out of this monster of a machine, worked with tears rolling down their faces. At some point, someone said the words that I would hear over and over in the coming hours, days, weeks, and months. Lorie, you need to be really strong now. Your parents are so upset. You need to be brave for them. Don't cry. Be as brave as you can be. So I was brave. I didn't cry. I took that little girl that I had been up until 6:18 p.m. that night, and I shoved her deep down inside of me. And I put on a mask of false bravado. I took a deep breath and just tried to survive. I didn't cry for 3 decades. But behind that mask of false bravado, I was a mess. I became the loud, funny girl in high school trying to hide the pain. I was an honor roll student who nearly flunked my freshman year of college. And I was so sure that I was so ugly that no man would ever find me beautiful enough to love and marry me, that I made choices that I wasn't ready to make, and I became a parent at 19. And then I married a man that I was incapable of loving because I didn't love myself. I was too thin, shaved my head, wore black every day. I wanted to disappear. I didn't want anyone looking at me. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I would avoid looking at my right arm because what you can't see can't hurt you, right? I was clinically depressed and contemplated suicide often. But I loved my children with a fierceness that saved my life many times. Until finally I'd had enough, and I sought intense therapy. And my wonderfully aggravating therapist pushed me until I lost it, and I raged at her. What do you want from me? Do you want me to cry? I haven't cried since I was 13 years old. And she looked at me and very gently said, yes. You've been waiting for permission to cry since you were 13, and I'm giving it to you. So I cried for about 6 years. I wept for that little girl that I had tucked away.